news is awesome, yet despite its many collectible codec entries, missing one massive thing from the previous open world RPGs, Discovery Tour. For those unaware, Discovery Tour was your invitation to experience the worlds of Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla, all at your own pace. Hostile NPCs or quests, the world's best stay-at-home vacation as you push forward on the joystick and follow that golden line. I've done the exploring for you. I've made my own, minus the reading. No running through bushes, no sliding down steep hills, no endless declouding of the map. Why waste another moment in 2025 where war is ever present, common people are abused by their leaders, and technology threatens to take your jobs? Let me transport you to the late 16th century where war is ever present, common people are abused by their leaders, and new technology threatens to take your... Ah, crap. Well anyway, let's deep dive into this Temu Assassin's Creed Shadows Discovery Tour. Arguably, besides Shadow's commitment to including every single blade of grass, bush and rolling hill of Japan, its most impressive recreation has to be the castles, letting you face-hug rooftops, crash through its doors, and take in some truly epic views atop the Tenshus. To recreate them, the team visited real-life structures still standing today, as well as used historical maps and illustrations to accurately recreate their layouts. So it makes sense to start with one of Japan's thriving tourist hotspots, Osaka Castle. The game's depiction of Osaka is incredibly impressive until you remember that the game begins in 1579, 4 years before construction of the epically impressive Tenshu had even begun. Excluding the castle altogether would have been pretty disappointing for fans, which is probably why Ubisoft chose to present the castle in mid-construction, evident by the building materials and half-finished framework structures found around its perimeter. Of course, in-game the castle itself is fully finished in all its glory, but in real life the castle wasn't completed until 1597, a full 14 years later, which sounds bad until you realise that is still faster than the wait for Elder Scrolls 6. The legendary Tenshu was ordered by Daimyo Toyotomi Hideyoshi and features a 5-story main tower with fancy gold leaf on the sides. Toyotomi's goal was to create a castle that surpassed another famous castle built by Oda Nobunaga. So basically, Osaka's castle was just one big dick measuring contest.
You sir are a silly little man, and your hair looks like the tail of a pony!
The castle he wished to beat was Azuchi Castle, which every player will remember for its seemingly endless staircase leading you to its viewpoint high above. Azuchi Castle was Warlord Oda Nobunaga's primary residence, but unlike Osaka, Azuchi was completed just in time for the game to begin in 1579. But what makes this architectural marvel of the past even more marvellous is the fact that it was destroyed in 1582. And spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1, following the Hanoji incident in Kyoto where Naoe and Osaka crashed Nobunaga's assassination, the castle was taken over by Akechi Mitsuhide's forces before being burned to the ground, supposedly by angry townsfolk, with only its stone foundation remaining today, which meant Ubisoft team had to go to some pretty extensive lengths to accurately recreate the legendary castle for the game. They used historical documentations and illustrations as a guide. Castles must have been the 16th century equivalent of a big sports car because Azuchi sets a high bar standing 7 stories above ground, with its iconic octagonal belvedere at the top, enough to make up for any lack of size in your Tento. More impressive is what's inside the octagon tip, with the team recreating the famous Azuchi screens. These were a set of 6 folding screens that featured individual hand-painted murals depicting Azuchi Castle and its nearby town. The screens themselves were supposedly gifted to an Italian Jesuit priest before being presented to Pope Gregory VIII. For a time they were displayed at the Vatican in Rome, but since they have somehow disappeared from historical record, very not suspicious at all. Weird history fact, Oda Nobunaga's assassination by Mitsuhide was on June 21st, 1582. Mitsuhide himself is then assassinated on July 2nd, 1582, only 13 days later. So historically anyway, Shadow's second act between Nobunaga's death at Hanoji and your defeat of the Shinbakufu leader only spans a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, my Naoe and Yasuke are celebrating their 509th birthday, still trying to track down that damn white tanuki. One last castle worth mentioning for the game's story's sake, and well because castles, is Sakamoto, an impressive walled fortress built on the western bank of Lake Biwa. It's interesting because this was Akechi Mitsuhide's residence, so despite being one of Nobunaga's most trusted samurai generals, Oda's future betrayer was basically his next door neighbor. So really, one of Japan's most important historical events could just be attributed to your good old neighborhood rivalry. Moving to another neighbouring conflict is Iga, where the origins of the ninja is slightly more complicated than the game presents. History attributes the origin of the shinobi to the Iga clan, which is featured in the game, and its neighbouring province, the Koka clan, which isn't featured in the game. Both were legendary villages where the secretive arts of tactical prowess originated. But rather than just being everyday villages though, they were what's called jisamurai, or country samurai, or samurai of the land. These were essentially lower ranking samurai who owned land and engaged in agriculture when not fighting. Both clans developed their own unique ninjutsu styles, with Iga focusing on espionage and Koka focusing on fire and poison. So yeah, your weapon buffs are in fact lore accurate. While initially rivals for many decades, the two clans eventually did form an alliance. Unfortunately for both though, Oda Nobunaga was responsible for each clan's demise. After several conflicts in the years prior, the Koka Iki ultimately surrendered, while as we know from the game, Iga were invaded and forced to surrender via death at the hands of a certain samurai.
Why must samurai always battle one another? Because there is only one way for a samurai to get ahead. Ahead.
Sorry, Naoe.
I did not say it was a good joke.
While Shadow's recreation of Kyoto is subject to a little bit of video game shrinkflation, it does offer the chance to experience key tourism landmarks still around today, minus the large crowds and social anxiety of course. There's Kinkakuji, the famous gold pavilion in the north, Toji Temple, the famous 5-storied pagoda in the south, Arashiyama's famous bamboo grove in the west, and the Kiyomizu-dera Temple and its famous veranda view, featured in more travel blogger videos than Decapitated Soldiers by Yasuke. Experiencing all these will usually set you back a few hundred yen just for entry alone, but thanks to Shadows, you can get them at the inflated price of just $70. Kyoto is home to another landmark. If you find yourself standing right about here on the map, then you'll essentially be standing where the future Nintendo headquarters will one day be built. Fun.
Do I know you from somewhere?
Don't you recognize me?
It's me, Mario!
This next hotspot is one that I would totally forgive you if you incorrectly attributed it to just another Ubisoft glitch. In Yamato, you'll discover Nara and its quite problematic deer population that exists side by side with its human inhabitants. This slight deer infestation has been going strong for over 1,000 years. According to the legend, the god, and I'm gonna stuff this up, Takamikazuchi no Mikoto arrived on a white deer, leading to its people revering the deer as divine messages of the god. Today, the divine deer in real life have actually taught themselves the habit of bowing for tourists in exchange for overpriced biscuits. And if you refuse, they will essentially go full Yasuke on you with endless kicks and headbutts until you give in actually. If your shinobi travels made their way to Harima, the first thing you may have noticed, besides the senseless devastation of war and death around you, was this smoky haze added by the development team to capture the ominous feel as you cross the decimated burning debris of the battlefield. The team used Harima to capture the history of battles and war during the Sengoku period. Harima's position as a hub connecting eastern and western Japan made it a key battleground for rivaling daimyo fighting for control of the land and influence. And thanks to the Portuguese introduction of firearms, these battles were particularly bloody. Plus, you'll notice these little mini forts throughout the area. Well, remember Toyotomo Hideyoshi, the guy who had Osaka Castle built because of his small tanto? Well, his armies built more than 40 of these mini forts to strategically choke off the routes of approaching forces and spoil any plans of taking the castle. This is Japan, actually. One last location to draw your eyes to is Obama in the Wakasa region, and while no, it's not an ode to our past United States president, although he does deserve it, it is a respectful nod to China's influence on Japan, as Obama was essentially Japan's gateway to China as a seaside port town, which is why you'll notice these red lanterns down its merchant streets selling imported goods. As part of the quest for tracking down the fox, you'll meet Chef Hong, as well as be forced to try his delicious udon noodles. Udon, of course, was originated in China before being introduced to Japan, so really, you could say Chef Hong was one of the first food blogger / influencers to visit Japan, so don't forget to smash that like button. If you were one of the excited ones to pre-order Shadows, then you've probably met a certain Akita hound named Sukumaru, part of the Thrown to the Dogs bonus quest. You find this little guy loyally guarding his owner Ichiro's grave. The quest involves avenging the death of Sukumaru's owner, before the little guy joins Nawe as her eternal companion at the hideout. This isn't just some random quest filler though, this quest is basically an ode to Hachiko, one of Japan's most famous dogs. Every tourist knows Hachiko from his statue at Shibuya Station in the heart of Tokyo, and this is because Shibuya Station is where Hachiko would faithfully wait for his owner every day when he finished work and commute home. When his owner passed away, Hachiko continued to wait for him every day for 10 years from 1925 to his death in 1935, with his loyalty inspiring the bronze statue in his honor. But if that wasn't enough to leave you a crying puddle of emotions, then prepare for another Pixar-level gut punch, because despite one of Shadow's best features being the ability to pat and interact with any Akita dog you find, Akita dogs in Japan weren't introduced until many centuries later, meaning your collection of pups at your hideout is completely and historically inaccurate, I'm afraid. One surprising element of Shadow's main story is the Imperial Regalia that you chase are in fact 100% true. The three sacred treasures, the jewel, the mirror, the sword, each hold significant cultural and symbolic importance to Japan, each representing a different virtue: valor for the sword, wisdom for the mirror, and benevolence for the jewel. According to legend, these treasures were brought to Earth by Nini no Mikoto, who was sent by his grandmother, the sun goddess Amaterasu, to pacify Japan, and since then have been passed down by emperor to emperor throughout Japan's history. Shadows, of course, incorporates them into Yasuke and Naoe's quest as the valuable artifacts that the Templars are seeking, blending history with its fictional plot.
That woman deserves her revenge, and we deserve to die.
When the Assassin's Creed series transitioned to its larger RPG games, we lost quite a bit. Its parkour took a backstep, its single city focused design was left behind, and the Assassin's power fantasy lost a little bit of its focus. But we also gained something. We gained games drenched in history that can transport you back to these locations lost to time. Yes, the team have taken liberties along the way. Not everything is 100% factual, but in the end, these are games, they're not encyclopedias. And let's be honest, even for casual fans, everyone has a favourite AC game. And it's not because it's got the most perfect gameplay or the world's most riveting story, although sometimes it is. It's because the time setting is a place you've always connected with. Some have always dreamed of seeing the world from atop the pyramids. Others have long fantasized about breaking waves of enemies in ancient Greece, 300 style. And there are those who have always wanted to be a bloodthirsty / just plain thirsty Viking. For me, there's just something about tragic Ronins travelling the countryside, hooded ninjas on rooftops, ruling lords, torii gates and mountains, lots of effing mountains. And Shadows gives me that. Every castle, every shrine, every town is based on a real location for you to get lost in. Sure, video games have always been about transporting us to other worlds, but have you ever thought about how, even in a digital age where all the key artifacts, iconic events and stories are just a click away online, but people still go to museums and galleries? In fact, back in 2020 when the pandemic hit us hard, all the galleries and all the museums closed, and this really should have been the end of them. Yet, by 2024, like a glitch in the Animus, surveys show that museum visits were actually exceeding pre-pandemic levels. Despite the convenience of online culture, history mattered even more. But not just to read, to experience. 2025 has gifted us two amazing games set in Japan, but for me, if Ghost of Yatai is a painting, then AC Shadows is a photograph. Both have their strengths, but the best thing about a photograph is that it's a memory of a real place. And sometimes, you just want something, well, real.